I have led a rather unusual life. I'm Australian. I worked for a while as a clinician. I trained as a doctor, and I worked in Africa, in the United Kingdom, and then back in Australia, particularly in an Aboriginal medical service. I then worked in public health. For a brief period, I was the manager of public health for the Olympic Games in Sydney. I worked in a university in Australia. I worked for an academic institution in New York. And now I head the Department of Aging and Life course in Geneva. Most people have a much more direct career trajectory. Mine is different. And one of the things I've confronted in all of those different roles is difficult problems. Problems for which people can't find the answer. The one that confronts me now as the Director of Aging and Life course is the problem of aging. Now, I'm happy to talk to you at another time to tell you I don't think it's a problem, I think it's an opportunity. But that's what I want to talk to you about. Because when I find people are confronted by problems for which they can't find a solution, what I often find is they're asking the wrong question. And so when people look at the problem of aging, they say, how can we afford to support older people? Because people are going to be living much more longer. And so they're going to need more healthcare, they're going to need more pensions. And yet the real question is, how is that population aging going to impact on our society? How can we create a society that actually allows it to flourish and allows us to benefit from the resource in older people? And I find this occurs repeatedly as I find different challenges. I found it in academia, in research. People often find a challenge and they just can't seem to find the solution, and then somebody comes totally from outside the norm with a fresh idea. People were a major issue in the 60s and the 70s in many parts of the world was peptic ulcers, and it took somebody with a very focused and determined attitude to actually shift the way people looked at the problem to realizing it's basically an infectious disease, and it can be treated with antibiotics and other treatments. So the question I'd like to leave you with from this very brief talk is, what is a really difficult problem that you've confronted or that might be confronting you at the moment? Step back and look at that problem and say, what is the question I am asking? And then step back further and try and look at the problem afresh. Look at what are the dynamics that are happening. Look at what is really the underlying question. And I want you to try and come up with a different question, a different way of looking at the same issue, and maybe you'll come up with a different answer.